Welcome back, Inebri-art. This is your host, Andy, as always. And some people might say if you're at a brewery at 10:30 on a Thursday morning, you have a problem, but that's my job and the life I've chosen. But I'm here in Dorchester Brewery in Dorchester, Mass. And we ran an event here about a week ago, and I noticed, hey, there's new art hanging on the wall, and I started looking at it. And it's hung by the Museum of Bad Art. So I'm here with Louise Reilly Sacco. I got that right?
Yes.
All right. Who I reached out to, and I'm like, hey, let's get you on the show and talk about exactly what and why Museum of Bad Art. So, I mean, how did it even come about? Like, what was the concept behind it?
The Museum of Bad Art started almost by accident in 1993.
Okay.
Scott Wilson was an arts and antiques dealer, and like all arts and antiques dealer, he drives really slowly on trash night to see what happens to be leaning against the trash barrels.
Of course.
And he saw a painting that he dismissed as, not a good painting, but it was in a beautiful frame. So he grabbed it, planning to throw out the painting and clean up the frame and sell it.
Yep.
He stopped by his friend Jerry Riley's house, and Jerry said, "You can't throw that out, it's so bad it's good." And Jerry took the painting and hung it over his fireplace in his house. That painting we called Lucy in the Field with Flowers. It's an amazing piece.
That's the one that's on the card that you just
It's on
gave,
my
right?
business card,
Yeah?
yes. That has a woman who may be sitting, she may be standing, the sky is yellow, the wind is blowing in two different directions, but she makes you look at it and say, what's going on here? What is this?
Yeah.
But anyway, then once Jerry hung it in his house, then Scott and other friends kept an eye out for other, really bad paintings in thrift stores and yard sales and the trash and,
Yeah.
all of that. And Jerry and his wife, Mari Jackson, ended up with a pretty sizable number of these paintings. They were moving house, and instead of calling it a housewarming, they decided to call their party the opening of the Museum of Bad Art. It was going to be a one-night event.
Yeah.
We painted the basement white, put up some cheap track lighting, and wrote up descriptions for each of these pieces. And everything we wrote up was in art speak.
Yeah.
It was never saying anything bad about the piece. It
Right.
was interpreting it in the way artists do. Note the color palette that's meant to convey such and such. And all of this. They invited about 50 people to this housewarming, and by midnight there were something like 200 people in their house because people kept calling their friends saying, "You have got to come and see this."
Oh, that's funny.
And the next morning, 5 of us said, well, we're going to have to find a way to keep this going. And took us a while to figure it out. But by 1994, we had our first public exhibit outside of Jerry's house. We had already got enough attention so that people would come by to see the art museum on this little street in West Roxbury in his little house. And when a busload of seniors from Rhode Island pulled up on the street to come and see the museum, we knew we had to move on. And we asked around. The owner of the Dedham Community Theater, which is old movie theater built in 1912 or something, gave us their basement. And
cool.
For years, we were in the basement of the Dedham Community Theater. And that space is memorable because people could enjoy the smells and the sounds from the men's room, which was right next to it.
Okay.
Overlapping with that period, we were given space in the basement of the Somerville Theater, which is another vintage movie theater. And that was not near the men's room, but was another basement space. The new ownership at Dedham meant we lost that space. We lost the Somerville space about 3 years ago because they had other plans for the building.
Mm-hmm.
And in between, we spent some time in the New England Animal Hospital lobby in South Weymouth. We were in Brookline Access Television cable studio for a while.
Okay.
We've had exhibits in different places. But through the pandemic, we really didn't have exhibit space.
Sure, and I mean, people weren't going to exhibits anyways.
And the people that might have had space weren't interested in talking to us about it. They had bigger problems.
Right.
What did happen during that time, though, is, well, I'll back up a bit. Over the years, we have had a lot of traveling exhibits. We've sent art to Calgary, to Arlington, Virginia, to New Mexico, to, lots of places. We've had 2 big shows that have gone overseas at times, in Taiwan and Tokyo.
Wow. This is so much bigger than I ever thought it was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's bigger than we even recognize right this minute sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, really? Are we really doing this? But what we used to do locally is maybe 3-4 times a year, we would take a slideshow to a public library. And, libraries love to have these events.
Oh, sure, evenings.
So, and Tewksbury Public Library, Tewksbury, Massachusetts, had me come back every few years.
Yeah.
And do a show about the Museum of Bad Art. The director there gave me a call and said, that slideshow that you've been bringing us, could you do it on Zoom? And we kind of went, duh, yes,
Sure,
why have
yeah.
we not been doing this? Why have we not already been doing this? So we tightened up the slideshow and did some work on it. Do you want to wait for these noises?
Is that too much? Okay.
All right.
These mics are pretty directional, so.
Okay, good. No, so we tightened up the slideshows and did some work on it and developed a couple more shows. So we had an introduction to MOBA, the MOBA Zoo, portraits. Get it? Portraits.
Portraits.
right.
I love a good pun.
In the nude, NOOD.
Yeah.
And doppelhangers.
What is doppelhangers?
It's a lot like doppelgangers.
Yeah.
But it's our pieces hanging on the wall. They're pieces that intentionally are not look like a famous person.
Oh, okay. All right.
So anyway, with those 5 shows, actually, again, let me back up a little bit. We did this Zoom program with the Tewksbury Public Library and got a huge response. So immediately decided that we should be offering this. And of course, libraries pay a fee for people to bring programs, and we had no income from anything else at the moment. So we decided we should offer this to other libraries. And it was really easy to get a list of librarians in Massachusetts. So, email list.
Yeah.
So we sent an email to 400 librarians in Massachusetts, and within a couple of weeks, we had booked 20 programs.
Wow.
On Zoom. From that, then we started. It turned out Massachusetts was the only state that it was easy to get that list, but we painfully developed lists for other states, and ended up doing about 150 programs for libraries.
No kidding.
Over Zoom.
That's crazy.
Which is and now that's sort of something we do also for business groups, social groups. Anybody who wants a program like this.
Yeah.
So that's what we did over the pandemic was raging. But also I have to do my math now, in 2020, we were supposed to be bringing a major exhibit to Quebec City.
Yeah.
And of course, nothing happened in 2020.
Yeah, so many people, for the last 3 years, everyone had this year was supposed to be whatever.
There were 109 pieces were packed, and they never got sent out.
At least you didn't ship them out. My job that I got laid off from because of COVID, I shipped trade show displays.
Oh, yes.
And so it had gotten shipped, the next trade show, and wasn't lost, but was just, they're like, well, we know where it is, but it's not going anywhere for who knows how long.
Right.
So,
No, so it didn't happen in 2020. But then they said, well, did we want to do that? Would we do that show in 2021? So we did. So in 2021, we had 109 pieces in an exhibit in the right on the water in Quebec, in the old city.
Oh, nice.
That was in a building that had just been built as an exhibition building. We were the first event in it.
Oh, that's funny.
And there's a poster that was 2 stories high on the outside wall. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
So they asked us to come back the next year. So in 2022, this past summer, we brought 70 pieces. This time we were and this is part of a summer arts festival. So they take over a lot of things in the old city. This time it was in an ancient building that had just been rehabbed to be used for public work and public art, and we were the first
very
people
cool.
in it again.
Yeah.
They had, in 15 weeks, they had 60,000 people come through this show.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's insane. Yes. I mean,
What is... I mean, it's easy to understand the appeal of "quote unquote" good art. What is the appeal of bad art?
and I realize we've skipped over that whole question
Yeah.
of like, why?
Yeah.
Right? What do you do? When we talked about this at the start and we were getting going, we knew that we were having fun with this art, and we were very aware that we're celebrating it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not making fun of anybody. We're never saying bad things about the art or the artist. We're celebrating the art. But are we the only people who, are we five the only people who think this is interesting?
right, yeah.
And the insight that got us past that was, if you're walking past an art gallery with a group of people and someone says, wow, look at that, until you turn around, you don't know if it's really good or really bad. But either way, they
Sure.
want to share it.
And it's... If you go to a gallery and you come home and someone asks you how it was, you're going to remember the really good and the really bad, and everything in between is just not even like it existed.
Yes,
so
exactly.
it's almost like, for a stand-up comic, it's better to be booed than not to have a reaction at all.
Yes.
You know?
Right.
But the fascinating thing is, it's bad art, but it's someone trying their hardest.
That's part of our criteria, is
Yeah.
that it has to be art. And to us, art has to be sincere, or it's not art. So it's got to be sincere. What we're looking for is something went wrong in a way that makes it interesting or raises questions, but the same kinds of things that a fine art museum is looking for when they select art.
Yeah, like what does it invoke?
Exactly. And you want people to respond to it. And those are the pieces. And you've looked at our art. A lot of it, a lot of the response is WTF. Like, what were they thinking?
Well, I think, there's one right over your shoulder, the My Three Sons. Like, I grew up watching that show, and it's
Right.
the main character with three, like, actual
planetary
sons. I was
Yes,
trying
right,
to-
yes.
and I- and I-
Visual pun.
Yeah, and I'm
right,
like,
right,
I love
right.
that. That's a great pun.
Right.
That's. Are there... Like you mentioned before that they had to be bad in a good way, which I really appreciate because I'm a lover of bad movies.
Yes.
But there's that fine line between, like, I don't like Sharknado's fine, but the sequels I don't like because they're made intentionally bad. And I feel like if you intentionally make it bad, you can't make it bad in the right way.
Exactly. If someone tells us they are trying to make a piece to get into our museum, we'll tell them you're not going to succeed.
Yeah, because there's just something about when
Insincerity comes through.
Yeah. That's exactly, because you mentioned it had to be sincere, and
But that deliberateness if somebody says, "Oh, look at me, aren't I adorable? Aren't I, I'm terrible, ha ha ha."
Now, is there? You said some of these are found, in the trash or discarded, so there's no way of knowing. But if you know the artist, do you take into consideration their age? Because I feel like some art is bad just because they're young and they're learning.
Yeah, we have a whole list of categories that we don't accept.
Okay.
We do not accept children's art.
Okay.
We don't accept student exercises. Students shouldn't have to feel like someone's watching over their shoulder, ready to pounce.
We were at our life drawing event last night, and I was so disappointed that I scribbled over the face, and I'm like, I should just bring this and donate this tomorrow. But again, it wasn't a sincere effort; it was me being frustrated.
Yeah, and the other thing, we're not interested in kitsch.
Yeah.
Which is a whole. There are people who collect kitsch, and that can be wonderful and fun. Paint by numbers, no thank you, even if they're all painted the wrong colors, which there are people who do that too. No craft stuff, and nothing that's boring. Something could really be objectively a bad painting.
Yeah.
And it's just boring, so who cares?
Right. Yeah. So I was reading some of them, and some said they were donated, and some said they were found. Is that, like, do you go out looking for them? Is there a Monet bad artist, that, like, a known bad artist?
Okay, you get a couple of questions there. Our curator, Mike, cannot walk by a thrift store without going in.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he does buy them. And we used to have a price limit for him, that he wasn't supposed to spend more than $6.50. But
Okay.
he has now spent as much as $20 or $25 on a piece, because, we've got all that revenue coming in
Sure.
from our library talks.
Yeah.
Which is another thing about how this whole thing has kept going. There are no salaries. I've been doing this since 1993
Yeah.
for no salary.
Yeah.
So we're doing it because it's fun, which means we can get by on a shoestring.
Yeah, yeah.
We sell books and postcards and the usual museum merch,
Mm-hmm.
and that and these talks that we do are enough to keep the doors open.
Oh, that's awesome.
I just lost myself in that.
Oh, so I was saying,
there are
yeah,
artists
yeah.
that we, there are a couple of times there have been artists that we have got to know. One of them was very early on, we acquired a piece, I can't even think of the name of it, but it was sort of a neon colored face and some words around the top of it, and it had all this, kind of manic energy in it, but it was off. The face had three eyes, and
Okay.
but not in it was off. So we put it in our first book, and it was so it got some attention and mentioned in some magazines. Got a call, and it was signed by Sandy Winslow. Sandy called, and he said, "Hey, if you like that piece, I got a lot to show you." And we ended up having a one-man show that we called Relentless Creativity, I Just Can't Stop. And we had Sandy's pieces, which were all neon colored.
Mm-hmm.
They all had mostly three eyes. They all had things to say, and they all just had that same kind of energy in them that just grabbed you. But you would just look at, but what? But why? And Sandy has, since he died some years ago. But we heard from family and friends later that having a museum exhibit was just a really high point for him and exciting in his life.
He was fine with it being the Museum of Bad Art.
Absolutely. And the other person is, there's a woman named Mari Newman in St. Paul, and Mari, from the time we opened, sent us. She would send the art, and then we got her to send us the pictures first, because we really, there's only so much we can take. And we probably have 6, 8 maybe pieces of Mari's. And she has works in outsider kinds of exhibits, too. She is, I think, legally blind. She has a very small field of vision. Mm-hmm. So one of the first piece we got from her is bone juggling dog in a hula skirt, and it's a
Sounds amazing.
it's a horizontal piece with like a dachshund that's dancing and has a hula skirt on. It's amazing, but it's pointillist because she had this small field of vision, so she built it with little dots, that she could see, and she sends Mike gifts for Valentine's Day, that she made. She loves what we're doing, and we love what she's doing. But what we've learned from newspaper articles is that Mari puts objects in her yard in St. Paul and decorates them. And every few years, the municipal authorities say that she's got trash all over her yard, and that she needs to clean it up, and she won't, and she fights with them. And then they come and haul it away and charge her for the cleanup, and she has a fight about that. So she's an interesting
and then
character.
fills it up again?
And then she fills it up again over
so
the next few
interesting.
years. Yeah.
Right. And it's, I think part of what I really find appealing about the idea is, I was having a conversation last night where I don't like the term talent, because I think it's dismissive of all the hard work that people put in to learn the skill of drawing or painting. And so my argument was, it's a skill, and you get better over time, and the more tricks and tools you learn, the better you get. And I so many people who are like, oh, that's kind of cool that you guys do that, but I can't draw. And I'm like, it's not, no one walks out of any of our events with the Mona Lisa.
Right.
It's about learning and practicing and building that. So I kind of like the celebration of, it's not perfect. It's best I could do at the time, but it's not perfect.
Right.
I love
Right.
that kind of
Right.
idea behind it.
Oh, and some of you've looked around here. Some of the work is done by people who clearly have skills. Sometimes very impressive skills. When you look
Yeah.
at what the way they render whatever it is they're trying to portray, but they had an idea that didn't work out the way they hoped.
Yeah.
Or that wasn't as good an idea as they thought it was.
Sure, yeah.
So the execution can be wonderful.
Yep.
But the concept is where the
Yeah.
what the hell
Yeah.
happened. Yeah, right.
That's funny. So how did you end up here in Dorchester?
After our 3 years of being homeless,
Yeah.
we were getting fairly desperate to find a place.
Oh, is this the home of it now?
This is the home.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
We were getting desperate to find a place to show our. We've got 100 pieces showing in Quebec, but we don't have a place that people in Boston can
go
come and
see
see
it.
it.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and
yeah.
that just was not good. And we needed a place that had lots of wall space.
Yep.
That would let people come in and wander around for free.
Mm-hmm.
That had staff there, because we don't have a budget to have pay
Sure.
someone to be there, and that was accessible by public transportation here in Boston. So, and the few places we could think of weren't interested. City of Boston has business improvement districts, BID, all around the city.
Yeah.
I wrote to all of the BIDs and said, here's what we're looking for. If you know of an organization in your district that might be interested in hosting us, let's talk.
Yeah.
And the BID here in this part of Dorchester told the events manager here
Yeah.
at the brewery about us. They had just finished this room that we're in now, this events room, they had just finished building it, and they were looking for a way to make it more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So they thought that putting MOBA art in this room would make sense.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah.
And as you see, it's perfect. But the day we came to look around and see it and make some decisions, the more they learned about what we were doing, and of course we brought them our books so they could see it.
Yeah.
And all this. They said, well, you could also put some here and here and here and here. So we're now also in the game room, on the stairway, in
Yeah.
the hallways. We're all over the brewery.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we've been here for now September, October, November, December, 3 months.
Yeah.
And they've been thrilled. It's brought additional traffic in here.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those people buy beer or buy barbecue over at
Yeah.
the
Barbecue's great
barbecue
here.
place.
Yeah.
The barbecue's great. We're thrilled because we have a space that's opened
Mm-hmm.
11:30 every day until either 9, 10, or 11, depending on the day of the week.
Yeah, so it's great hours, and
People come in free.
Mm-hmm.
It's so it's just been a win-win. It's a nice brewery. It's a nice environment anyway. Even
Yeah.
before we put the art in it.
it's a very welcoming brewery. Like
Yeah.
ever since we've been working with them, maybe a year and a half, and I mean it's one of my favorite breweries to come to.
And it turns out that Matt, who founded it,
Yeah.
was my son's boss in 2 different jobs
Oh,
years and
really?
years and years
Oh,
ago.
that's funny. Isn't the
Which
world
was
so small sometimes?
The world is very small. Yeah.
So how many pieces does MOBA have? And like, if you don't have a brick and mortar location, like, I mean,
We
are you
have
storing
over
it?
We have over 800 pieces.
Okay.
We have storage containers
Yeah.
in a warehouse, actually, and also the curator's garage is pretty full. And, there are about 40 pieces showing here.
Now, is there like, I mean, I'm assuming this will get swapped out at some point.
Yeah.
Are they for sale? Do you have people
No,
looking to
no.
purchase them?
Would you walk into the MFA and ask them if their pieces are for sale?
No.
We are a museum. We're a museum. We're not
Yeah.
an art gallery. We do sell prints,
Yeah.
posters, and our canvas prints of almost everything people can buy online. What we do sell,
I was just wondering, like, in my brain, I'm thinking that's a lot of storage, and like at some point you're Like, how do you just handle it all? And,
Well, we did go through deacquisitioning some pieces
Yeah.
that we knew we were never going to show again. People also send us a lot of art, or sometimes even leave it at our galleries that we don't want. It just doesn't meet our criteria. So what we have done is probably 4 or 5 times over the years, we've had an auction of the rejection collection. And each piece comes with a certificate that says this was rejected by the Museum of Bad Art.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that's been
that's an amazing
been
idea.
really very effective in getting rid of some of the stuff we don't want and raising a few
Sure.
bucks.
Oh, that's fascinating. Is there? I mean, you talked about the programming that you do with libraries and business. I mean, are there other concepts in the future that you're like working on? Or?
There are a couple. The exhibit that just finished up in Quebec, it closed in October, was put on by a company that does public art festivals. We were part of a festival. And the people who run that have kept that art. It's packed and it's in their warehouse because we're hoping that either we or they will book it into another location and we can send it directly there instead of bringing it back
moving
to Boston
it,
and out again. But the thing that we really, our goal right now is to have an exhibit in a traditional art museum. We really want to do that, and we've targeted a couple of museums that we think it would fit.
Yeah.
We haven't made the right connection yet, but that would give us a presence in the traditional museum world,
Right.
and a credibility that would really be important.
Yeah, and that's one of those. That email has to get to the right person on the right day.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's really fascinating.
And we also keep looking for connections to museums. Oh, wait a minute. You know somebody who works at the Warhol in Pittsburgh? Well, can you introduce me? And trying to get that kind of a link too.
I ran into a girl at a brewery in Plymouth, and she works at Turtle Bay Brewery, which is it's around here somewhere.
I don't know that one.
It's fairly local here. I'll get research on it. And she works for the MFA.
Oh,
I can't remember her name because it was like a year ago, but I'm assuming she still works there. And I think she was the events coordinator for Turtle
well,
Bay.
I mean, and that's exactly the kind of we feel like that's going to happen when we get that
Yeah.
kind of a connection who says, "Oh, wait a minute, you should talk to this curator and let me set it."
Yeah.
That's when it'll happen. But meanwhile, this is doing great. We're doing some of our virtual. We're still doing Zoom programs now. They tend to be hybrid. Some
Yeah.
people are there in person, and
Some people are zooming in. Yeah.
And in fact, Mike even did go to a library recently with a slideshow. Mike being the curator, and did one in person.
So I'm sure this is going to be a question that you're going to refuse to answer, but I feel like I'm obligated to ask
You
it.
never know.
What's your favorite bad artwork?
Would you ask someone who's their favorite
See,
child? You know that. My favorites come and go. Actually, okay, I do have a current favorite. Did you notice the guy with the that's taken out of the Sistine Chapel piece over in the game room?
No, I'll have to
All right,
look at
I'll
that.
tell you
I
the
didn't know.
back-
I wasn't in the game room last time I was here, so I didn't notice there were pieces.
I
of
may
it.
have to stop this and walk you over to let you see it.
Oh, yeah,
Let
let's
me
do that.
Okay, let's do that, and then I'll tell
We'll be right back.
give you the whole background.
And we're back.
Okay. Everybody knows the painting in the Sistine Chapel that's called The Last Judgment. Great big thing behind an altar that has gods in the middle pointing people towards hell in the lower right-hand side of the painting and up towards heaven in the upper right-hand side. There is a character that's on his way to hell that is a muscle-bound kind of guy who's just all sort of curled up and looking sad. And the street vendors in Rome have taken that guy and put him on mugs and posters and
okay.
T-shirts, and they call him the Damned Man.
All right.
So he's a pretty well-known chunk of
that
little
painting,
chunk
yeah.
of that giant painting. our artist painted a version of this, and the guy was already a little too muscle-bound.
Yeah.
My theory is that Michelangelo was getting tired of this painting by the time he got to this guy and
Yeah.
kind of slapped him together. No, I'm not an art critic, and maybe I'm off, but that's how I see him.
Sure.
Our artist made him really cartoon-level
Yeah.
muscle-bound. And he put a green neon Speedo on him.
That's
Which is just wonderful.
So the three things that stuck out when you just showed it to me was the Speedo.
Uh-huh.
Was the position of, like, so the original has like his hand like on the side of his face, kind of covering one eye, but like the position of the eye in this one is off, so he almost looks like a cyclops.
Yes.
And then there's a random eye in the upper left-hand corner that I had to go back and look at the original and be like, oh no, that's not there. Like,
With some kind of slime heading
Yeah,
down
yeah,
over
it's
the
very-
So we call him, he's the damn guy.
The damn
Not
guy,
not
so the damn man.
But there's more.
okay.
Where this came from is two families in Newton, I think. Were the both men were physicians who were friends, and one of the physicians had a grateful patient painted that picture and gave it to him, and he couldn't throw it out, but he didn't want to keep it, so he gave it to his friend, and then the two families gave it back and forth to each other in very sneaky ways for years.
Just kind of like left it amongst, closets.
Well, the best one I heard of is that the two of them were at a hockey game together,
Yeah.
and one of them says, "Oh, let's go get a beer," and they get up to the beer counter. And the woman says, "Oh, you are our 1,000th customer. You get a prize." And she hands him a wrapped prize, and it's the painting.
That's amazing.
So they were at that level. Well, anyway, one of these guys had died, and the remaining families decided they were tired of passing it back and forth. And when they heard about us, they decided this was the right place for it. So, and we love it. So it's.
With the rise of paint nights, paint and sips, do you see a lot of people trying to donate those type of things?
We do, and you know what they are as soon
Oh,
as
yeah,
you see
yeah,
them. Yeah,
yeah.
right. Yes, yeah, they are, and we just send them a polite letter saying doesn't meet our criteria. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's
That's got to be an interesting letter to get.
well, it's like being rejected. Pieces we sell at our rejection collection auction, for instance, we don't say why.
Yeah.
We're not going to say to somebody, "Yeah, that's just boring." I mean, we might say it's not. It's a print. It's not even an original.
Right, yeah.
Which sometimes happen. But usually, if they want to think we rejected it because it's not bad and it's good, they can think that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's seldom the truth, but
Yeah.
they can think it.
Oh, that's funny. Is there any piece in the collection that you think is too good and you kind of got overridden? No?
No.
That's not a...
That's, yeah, this is, we turned down so many.
Yeah. I can imagine,
yeah.
like, once kind of word... I mean, you've been around for a long time, so, like, once word got out, I'm sure there's... many museums worth of stuff that you get offered.
There are some that I have lobbied, once or twice that I've lobbied the curator to say, yeah, let's take this. Come on, we need to take this. And part of what we look at sometimes is, we always do these descriptions, these tongue-in-cheek descriptions of the pieces, and sometimes Michael will look at it and say, yeah, but what could we say about it?
Okay.
Because we want to have something to add to it.
Right. Yeah.
It's what there are cafes and things that throw yard sale art up on the wall, and a lot of it's not very good. No, but that's not what we are. We are deliberate, and we are adding the value of our interpretation.
Yeah. I think part of what makes it so good is how serious you guys take it.
Yes.
Because it's that intention. It's the person was sincere in their painting, and you're sincere in the way that you treat it. You treat it like any other piece of art.
And along those lines, the first book, we've had 2 books published. The first one had a painting of like a merman under the sea. And he was kind of dancing. And I forget exactly what we said about him, but anyway, it was kind of an interesting piece. And it was signed but we weren't able to find out anything about the artist. He was invisible online. 15 or 20 years later, I got a call from a woman in Florida who said the artist was her next door neighbor, and he was 85 years old, and she had showed him the book when she saw his name in it, and he wanted us to know that we understood him exactly.
Oh, that's funny.
Which was just, wonderful.
It's so funny. Have you had any negative response from an artist?
We've had a few. Most often, artists are, even if they didn't submit the piece, are thrilled to hear that they're in a museum.
Yeah.
And if they did submit it and we turn them down, they can tell themselves they're not that bad. And,
right.
So
I'm too good.
They can't lose. But a couple of times, someone learned that we had a piece of theirs and they were not happy about it. Once was a guy who was now an artist for Marvel Comics, and he felt that it would hurt his brand if they thought, especially since the piece we had was Bruce Lee coming up out of the fog under the Golden Gate Bridge.
All right.
And in that case, in any of those cases, we offer to send it back to them. And I think he just asked us to destroy it, which hurts, but we did it.
Yeah.
And a few times there's been something like that. A woman called enraged saying, I threw it out and I wanted it thrown out. But once you throw it out and leave it on the curb, we really can't take it. But we wouldn't argue.
Being respectful of their intention.
Of the artist, absolutely. So maybe 3 times we've had to get rid of something. The other side of it is, in our first book, we had a piece called Sunday on the Pot with George. And it was this fat man apparently sitting on the toilet with kind of a towel wrapped around his knees. And it's one that I liked a lot, and it got a lot of attention over the years. The artist and it was unsigned. The artist who painted it identified himself, and he had a picture of himself with it many years ago, so we knew it was legit. And he lives on Cape Cod. He earns his living doing art, and he will talk to journalists about it. And he just feels like we gave it the attention it deserved, and it was fun. And he's very positive, as most of them are.
That's awesome. Where can our listeners go to find out more? www.museumofbadart.org. Probably even better is Facebook. Look for Museum of Bad Art on Facebook, and there are a few random pages named Museum of Bad Art. Look for the one with 65,000 followers. That's us. Okay.
And they can send us a note, and we send out a MOBA news about 4 or 5 times a year.
Oh, nice.
And that will tell you about events and new pieces. Send any email to us at info@museumofbadart.org. And we'll get that and we'll respond.
And they can purchase the books and prints and whatnot through the website?
Through the website, you'll see a shop button. And 2023 wall calendars.
Oh, nice. Nice. That's awesome.
We've been doing wall calendars for about 4 years now.
That makes sense, yeah.
Books, postcards, T-shirts, the usual
museum stuff. Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome.
And they can donate, too. We're a 501c3 corporation. We depend on
the generosity of others.
The generosity of friends, of strangers. Small sources of revenue here and there, keep it going.
That's fantastic. Well, I love what you guys are doing, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. And
it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Keep up the bad work, I guess.
Yes. Yes.
And thanks for our listeners. Thank you for Dorchester Brewery for letting us record here, and we'll see you guys again next week. And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.